lined up for you guys. We're going to be going through a lot of Champions League football. Only 2 games left before we get to that final. We'll look at the Europa League final, which I'm happy to predict it correctly. And after that, 2 leagues are back. We got MLS is back, and then Ligue 1, French's domestic league, is back as well, starting up again. So lots of soccer to go through. After we get through the games, got a couple futures and a couple props for you guys. So last week went 3-0 on props, 7-3 overall. So let's get you some good stuff. And before I get into it, just got to remind you guys real quick about promo code Rotz. If you guys are ever looking for some of the best data out there, I can't always give you all the picks, but BetQL can give you some data that will set you on the right path and win you some money. All right, so let's get right into it. First game we're going to talk about is RB Leipzig versus Paris Saint-Germain, PSG. All right, Leipzig pulled off the upset last week over Atletico. Disappointing, but here they are. Nagelsmann's squad is looking great coming into the game right now. We have Dani Olmo has been incredible in Timo Werner's absence. He scored 2 goals when Werner was out a few months back against Hoffenheim, and then here against Atleti, we watched him score again. So kind of taking over that role as a scorer for Leipzig. Looks like it's going to be Olmo. Another guy that really stood out this week and put him on the radar of every major club in Europe, Dayot Upamecano, the center back for Leipzig. Man was absolutely lights out all game on the ground, in the air. Incredible. Now it's being reported that Real Madrid is going to be looking at him. No surprise there. I wouldn't, it'd be kind of hard for Leipzig to keep him after some of the performances we've seen him put in now. So we'll see what happens with him. But 2-1 for Tyler Adams, scores the game-winning goal, American hero. So may have lost the bet, but I'll take it if Adams can get his first goal. Heck of a time to score a goal for, score your first club goal, and definitely the biggest goal ever scored by an American in Champions League. PSG this week, PSG coming into this game, hell of a game. About down 1-0 going into the 90th minute against Atalanta, and they pull out 2 goals out of nowhere. For as much flack as Neymar is going to get for some of his just major misses last time out, he definitely was the best player out there on the field throughout the entire game. He was active, incredibly spry. He set up that game-winning goal at the win it. So even though he didn't have the goals on his sheet, was still incredible. It doesn't deserve as much flack as he's getting, but it's pretty hard not to make fun of some of those misses. Who else we got? You got Gillian Bernat and Thilo Kehrer. Those are 2 guys that I think are going to possibly let down PSG. Against Atalanta, they really struggled out there on the flanks, were giving up tons of crosses, just getting lost in it. And we saw that's how Atalanta scored that first goal. So if they can't keep up with some of the guys that Leipzig has out there, Leipzig is fast. Leipzig is a tough team to play with. For this, went against them last week, but I've learned from my mistake. Hopefully they can pull off another upset. I'm going to have to go with RB Leipzig for sure. If we see it's the same kind of performance that PSG had against Atalanta, Leipzig comes through. Major key is going to be Kylian Mbappe. When he came on, PSG definitely looked a lot better. They're saying he's fit enough to start the game. We'll see if that actually comes true, but we will see. The next game that we got coming up for you guys is Bayern and Lyon. There's really not too much to say about Bayern at this point that, what hasn't already been said. They're the best team in Europe right now, hands down, bar none. They're coming off an 8-2 thrashing against Barcelona. 8-2. That's just insane. I don't think anyone had that on the cards, but honestly, if you've watched enough Barca recently, you may have had it on there. For Hansi Flick, I think at this exact moment, there isn't a better manager in the world throughout Europe, any player right now. Hansi Flick, since taking over, is 31-1-2. He only has 2 losses across 34 games. absolutely incredible. They haven't lost a game since a 0-0 draw to Leipzig several months back, about 19 games ago to be exact. So Bayern is coming against the major upset of last week, Lyon. Lyon pulling out the upset as plus 1,000 underdogs. Just incredible. Looks like Guardiola wasn't prepared properly at all for them, but they capitalized 100%. We talked a little bit about Moussa Dembele last week starting up top. He didn't end up starting for them, but he came on as a sub and scored 2 goals like that. So we'll see if going into this game, if Puel will use Dembele up front. This past game, Depay still looked really rusty. Looked like he was getting frustrated. Meanwhile, Carl Toko, who started over there on the left-hand side, was looking great. His runs were setting up a lot of space that opened up that first goal for Lyon. Some major factors for Lyon is that midfield. That midfield has been incredible against Juve and now City. Max Cacaret, Houssem Aouar, and Bruno Guimaraes have been just stout back there. Cacaret's interception is which was started that first goal against City. And then Guimaraes, man, just stout back there, just recycling possession, just doing his job when he needed to. He seemed to get a little fatigued at the end of the game, had to come off, but man is incredible. But with all that being said, as talented as Lyon is, they're not going to beat Bayern this week. Bayern is playing on a different level than I think we've seen in European football in a few years now. I mean, they are just, I've said it a lot, they're scoring at will. We see them, they're aggressive on the press. They're finishing all of their shots. So I'm going to have to go with Bayern in this match. I don't think it's too much of a surprise as minus 435, but that's where to go with. And with that, that's the end for Champions League. We're only going to have one more game after this, unfortunately, but we are going to have some Europa League this week too. And we're going to have a final, and that's going to be Sevilla versus Inter Milan. Unfortunately, I don't have the odds for us right now. Went through DraftKings, went through FanDuel, couldn't find them up there yet. So, they'll be out there by tomorrow. For this one, though, I had Sevilla last week coming up against Man U. They pulled it out, and now they're going to face Inter Milan, who's coming off of just a 5-0 thrashing of Shakhtar Donetsk. Lautaro Martinez ended up scoring. He scored twice. Lukaku bagged 2 goals in about 5 minutes. So they're looking as good as ever. Lukaku coming into this game had scored in both of his previous Europa League games. So he's in the best form he's been in some time. Martinez, in him scoring, I mean, if they can bring that against Sevilla, it'll be hard to stop. My biggest issue with Inter, what's always been my big issue with Inter, is that at times they seem entitled. Talked about it a little bit last week where things start to get maybe a little tough and they just kind of break down. They don't have that mental toughness that I think someone like Sevilla has. Sevilla is now unbeaten in 20 straight games. They're just a gritty team, man. They're gritty. They find ways to win. After Bruno Fernandez's penalty, they come back, score 2 goals. Lucius Ocampos sets up Sergio Reguilon for that first goal. And unfortunately, we're hoping that Ocampos can come back for the final. He went off injured in the against Man U, but it didn't seem like anything too serious. We should see him back. The major player for Sevilla, though, who's going to be key for them, is Ever Banega. Ever Banega is at 31 years old now. He's had a lot of off the field issues in the past, but he's really been coming into his own. Better late than ever. He's always been a talented guy, and we're seeing that on full display now. By far, just controlled the game on a pitch that had guys like Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes. Banega was the best pure midfielder by far. He completed 94% of his passes last time out. Just incredible. Overall, he's completed 237 passes over the past 3 games in the Europa League against Roma, Wolves, and now Man U. So, I think that Sevilla is going to pull this one out. Been riding them for a while now. Their form in the Liga was great. They come into Europa League just tough, willing to find ways to win. So I think going into this week, we're going to see Sevilla pull off, some Champions League qualification by winning against Inter Milan. Now, those are our European games for right now. Those are the European tournament games. What I'm going to get for you guys tonight is a little Liga MX action, a little Apertura. We're going to have Club Lyon versus, Club Tijuana. So Club Tijuana is plus 480. My mistake on that. And for this one, we're going to see Club Lyon, which has the best defense by far in the league. In 4 games, has only given up 2 goals, has had 2 clean sheets now, or 3 clean sheets in 4 games. So they're stout as they come against Club Tijuana at plus 480. Tijuana is just bad. Tijuana is a bad team. They have yet to score in their past 3 games. They're really just going on a drought. They also have one of the worst goal differentials in the league. Actually, the worst, coming in at -4. They're currently 7th. Club Lyon is up at what place? They're in 7th right now. So I'm going to give this over to Club Lyon. Last week, my Monterey pick, it hit. So hopefully for you guys leading into tonight, you can get another winner there. And so we're going to also have, as I mentioned before, the return of Ligue 1, French's top-tier league. Maybe not the best league in the world, but some might disagree now that 2 teams are in the Champions League final. We're going to see another powerhouse of French football this weekend in the opener, and that's Marseille versus Saint Etienne. Marseille comes into this game after last season finishing 2nd at the stop. Saint Etienne was in a relegation battle for most of last season, ended up finishing 17th. So this should actually be a good game, because as bad as Etienne seems from the whole work of their season last year, they really started to pick it up at the end of the year. We saw them, and a lot of that momentum carry on over into the Coupe de France, which is major tournament over there in France. It's their league tournament. They ended up going all the way to the final before losing to PSG 1-0. And we've seen them in some of their friendlies now perform pretty well. They're 4-2, and they seem to have fallen off in those last 2 games leading up to competition. We'll see if they can really pull it back against this Marseille team that last year was the 4th highest scoring team in the league, has some real talent up front, headlined by Dimitri Payet. 9 goals and 4 assists last year. If you know him, he's a set piece specialist. He's absolutely lethal from free kicks anywhere near goal. And another guy that's coming back for them to not really any fanfare, Florian Pavon, the 27-year-old former young player of the year. He scored 15 goals in each of his full, healthy 3 seasons with Marseille. Last season, he suffered an ankle injury, and that ankle injury unfortunately sidelined him for the entire season. Now he's back. He seems to be getting his legs back under him. He started in their last friendly against Bayern, where they lost 1-0. So we'll see if they have what it takes to really push Etienne like they've been being pushed. With that being said, I'm going to take Marseille this week. I think it's going to be a close game, but the talent that Marseille has and their collectiveness should be able to push them over the edge against this Saint Etienne team, who, like I said, is getting better. They're not that 17th worst team in the Ligue 1, as you would think if you just look over at the standings. So that pretty much concludes our tour of Europe right now. We're going to send it back over to the States now. MLS started back up already. We know MLS is back. The tournament finished up last week. The season, they're wasting no time in getting it on already. Started today with FC Dallas versus Nashville. And leading up into this weekend, especially tomorrow, a few games that I got earmarked for you guys is this. is this is the LA Galaxy and LAFC matchup. These have been tons of fun to watch since LAFC has come over and joined the MLS. Each game has 4 of the past 7 games have hit the over. Their last 2 games, they've scored a combined 16 goals. Just, whether it's their animosity because it is a rivalry, El Tráfico, but they've come out and scored. They both have some great talent on the team. For LAFC, Carlos Vela is going to be back for them. He opted out of the MLS's back tournament due to his wife being pregnant. He didn't want to bring any complications back over there, but he's going to be ready to go, according to reports. He had 34 goals last season, broke the record, took home the MVP award, was the best player in the league by far last season. Already in the 2 games he got to play before the shutdown, scored 3 goals. So we're seeing that form run over into this season, and we'll see if it carries over after this restart. Now, Carlos Vela isn't the only talented guy on the team. I think there's a tendency to believe that since Vela has been so productive since he's come over, that LAFC is just completely dependent on him and they run through him. And while that is true to a degree, he is a massive part of the team. They do have a lot of talented guys throughout the starting 11 and even on the bench. One guy who needs to always be looked at is Diego Rossi, incredibly talented young Argentinian that was brought over, scored 4 goals against LA Galaxy his last time out. So if LA Galaxy doesn't come with a plan to stop him, I don't see him getting 4 goals again, but there's no reason he couldn't bag 1 or even get a brace himself. And at that point, we're halfway there to the total. For LA Galaxy, they're in a decline we haven't seen them experience in their history. Typically, we think of LA Galaxy as one of the MLS's marquee teams, big star power. They brought in this season Chicharito, the Mexican international, incredibly talented, great star power for the MLS. He went down with a calf injury in the MLS's back tournament. He had only scored 2 goals before going down, combined between the start before the shutdown and then MLS's back. We'll see if he can get in. We'll see if he's productive. Another guy to really watch for LA Galaxy is Cristian Pavon, another incredibly talented Argentinian. But before I get to talk any more about him, I have a couple things to tell you guys about. Mostly, if you guys have been looking for any great data, you guys are looking for some matches, for some advice on anything, 20% off BetQL subscription. Use promo code Rotz. Look, there's times you're there it's a Wednesday night, you just found a game, you want to bet on it, you're thinking, should I bet on it? Well, download BetQL, get your subscription, and BetQL will tell you if you should and tell you how to win. So highly recommend downloading that. We get tons of our data for a lot of these shows from the BetQL app, so head on over and check it out. Now, the reason that I want to stop talking about Cristian Pavon a little bit is because I've got a little prop for you guys. The first one of today is going to be Cristian Pavon to score this time out against LAFC. As being one of their most talented players in playing up front, he gets into obviously prime positions to score, but in these past few games, the past 5 games especially, he's been really settling in. 3 goals in his last 5 after only 4 and 13 last year. He came over from Boca Juniors in Argentina. So now we're seeing him really start to settle down. He seems like he's comfortable, and he's actually scored his last 2 times. He scored his last time out against LAFC, bagging a penalty against them. And teams like LA Galaxy and LAFC, who are very physical, always getting in each other's faces, very hefty defending, wouldn't be surprised if we see another penalty. And if we do, Pavon will be that guy to come up and score. So that is what we got to say for Cristian Pavon. Take him at plus 252. I think that's an incredibly generous line to take for him. Another scoring prop that I got for you guys is same game, different player, different team. We got Bradley Wright-Phillips to score. Not the best line, coming in at 112, but I think in this game out, he's almost guaranteed a time to score. Bradley Wright-Phillips is one of the most prolific scorers in MLS history. He's bagged 108 goals across his career in 5 games with the LAFC since coming over again from New York Red Bulls. He scored 4 goals in these 5 games. He scored his last time out against the Galaxy. He's an absolute goal machine. And with Vela being back, if they start off with, Diego Rossi on the left side, Bradley Wright-Phillips up front, and then Vela over there on the right-hand side, those 2 guys can draw a lot of attention, and that's going to be the perfect opportunity for Bradley Wright-Phillips to score. Similar kind of logic to what I thought last week with Lautaro Martinez. There's been so much attention drawn to Lukaku, and we saw it today, how Martinez was able to bag 2 goals out of that. Now, with MLS starting back up, it presents a great time for us to look at some futures. So MLS has released their futures for the championship, and leading the pack, no surprise, is LAFC at plus 300. But my pick, who I think can really surprise a lot of people, and listen, maybe it's recency bias, maybe it's because of how they performed in the tournament. It's not Orlando City. It is the Portland Timbers. Portland won the MLS's back tournament, and I think they have a chance to pull off a double. Portland has been one of the better teams in MLS for some time now. They're ready to take their title. I really do think that. There isn't a team, in my opinion, that's as effective and clinical on the counterattack as Portland Timbers has proven to be. They're absolutely efficient. Consistently, which is the one kind of nerve-wracking thing about them, is that they consistently outperform their expected goals. But for a team that only possesses the ball about 35, 40% of the time, that's really all they're looking for. They're really only looking for 4 or 5 real great chances, and they capitalize on them. So for now, I'm going to ride them while they've been hot. Guys like Steve Clark in the back of the net has been incredible. One best goalkeeper in MLS is back. Another guy on Portland Timbers who doesn't get enough respect is Diego Valeri, one of the most storied central attacking midfielders in MLS history. Valeri might easily be the best pure number 10 that they've had in the league ever. 65 goals and 46 assists across his MLS career. In 9 games this season, no sign of slowing down at all. He has 4 goals and 2 assists. And then on top of him, the guy he's feeding the ball to, Jeremy Ebebosi, is really broken onto the scene since last year. He scored 11 goals in all competitions last year. Already in 4 games, he already has 4 goals in 7 games this year. So he's carried that over. He's only 22 years old, and he has a lot of raw potential. Hopefully this season we can see that potential come out a bit more as Portland molds him into the striker that he should be, the striker that he can be. And as a U.S. international, we should be hoping that hopefully they really can. Next team I'm going to talk to you guys about, someone that I think is just bad value. I think they're overrated a lot. They have the second best odds to win the title this year, according to DraftKings, but I just don't see it. It's Toronto FC. Last year's MLS Cup runners-up see themselves at plus 800 now to win the title. For me, this just feels like a transition year for them. They have an aging core, Michael Bradley, Justin Morrow. We've seen Josie Altidore being shifted out of the setup now, but we're seeing that young talent not exactly click so far throughout the year. They've only gone 2-3-2 since 2020 has started. They're not playing their best. What got them to the MLS Cup final last year, they were playing a 4-3-3, and it was effective. It was doing wonders for them. This year, we're seeing them play more 2-3-4, 2-3-1s. So, and mostly that's because Pablo Piatti. He was one of their big acquisitions this past offseason. They brought him in. He's playing over there on the right-hand wing, and it's just not working out. He doesn't seem like he's a great fit. The formation doesn't really seem like it's clicking. So I think at plus 800, very overrated. I wouldn't personally touch them, but there is an underrated team out there. There is a team that I think isn't getting the respect that they really do deserve. And after last season, we saw them kind of pop up, and I think they're here to stay, and that's Minnesota United. At plus 1,800, I think they have a potential to be a champion this year. They started about 3 years ago. The first 2 years, not the best, but last year they finally made the playoffs, lost in the first round, but in MLS is back. They looked good. So far in 2020, they're 5-2-1. They lost their top goal scorer, so I think for a lot of people, that kind of for a lot of the odds makers, maybe that puts them off a bit. But Darwin Quintero is out. Luis Amarilla is in, and he doesn't seem like there's much of a difference. He scored 2 goals in 2 games before the break. And now in MLS is back. Last week, he scored another goal. So he's being productive. He's fitting in almost seamlessly, and he's given them that engine, not a creative engine, but a scoring threat that they're going to need without Darwin there. They actually beat my pick, Portland, earlier this year. They beat them 3-1. So this is a serious team. At plus 1,800, that could be the steal of the year. So with that being said, I'm just going to take a quick look back now at last week's episode to tell you guys that I made a mistake. I goofed up. I picked Man City last week, like most people, to beat Lyon, and it didn't happen. Lyon pulled the massive upset. Pep Guardiola seemed to have his tactics just completely wrong, and Lyon capitalized. I mentioned them a little bit last week. I hyped them up a little bit last week with how much talent they had on the roster. Even before, I told you guys about the midfield, their striker pairings, and for City, it was too much. So for anybody that did take City on account of me, I'm sorry, but it's all good because I got a couple wins last week, and one of them I'm here to talk about is Bayern to score first and win in what was an absolute slaughtering, just disgusting to watch if you were a Barcelona fan, I'm sure. 8-2. Thomas Mueller got us on the score sheet in the 4th minute, and from there, it was history. This is one of those games where you kind of think about, was one team that bad, or was one team really that good? And what this was an absolute perfect storm for Barcelona. The defense has been on the decline. The midfield has struggled. They as a unit have struggled. And Bayern coming in the best form we've seen any team in quite some time. Yeah, they were going to thrash them, and they absolutely did that. Lewandowski ended up scoring. If you didn't score, you probably got made fun of after in the locker room. So that's it for today, guys. If you guys want to shoot me a follow over on Twitter, follow some of my commentary throughout the week, you can get me at Gary Danza over on Twitter. And before I go, like I mentioned before, you're going to want to bet throughout this week. Why not have some of the best data available to bet with? With promo code Rotz, you can get 20% off your BetQL subscription, and we can start winning together. So on that note, I'm out, guys. See you next week, Mondays at 8 o'clock. I'll see you guys then.